fill out their readiness rubric. So if you have your readiness rubric in front of you, you can follow along. I will tell you exactly how to fill this out, and if you need to pause, you can pause. Now obviously at the beginning I do want you to put your name where it says name, so put your first name and last name. And basically the readiness rubric is divided into 3 checkpoints. If this is the first time you're filling this out, it is checkpoint number 1. So up here next to checkpoint number 1, you can put today's date. All right, now the first section of the readiness rubric is all about your grades. Now I know the box isn't very big, so you're going to have to use small handwriting if you're doing this by hand. Otherwise, you can do a text box if you are in Notability. What you need to do in checkpoint number 1 is you're going to list all of your classes along with your most current grades. So for example, you might want to start with language arts, and you can abbreviate, and you might have a B in language arts. Then you want to go on to math. I'll say you have an A in math, science, social studies, art. Now you probably don't have art right now, but if you had art last semester, you could put your art grade in. If you have not had art yet, obviously you would not include it. Most of you have Phi-Ed and some sort of music class like choir, band, or orchestra. And you probably have Spanish. Now once you have all of your classes listed, over here on the right you are going to put a check mark in one of the 2 boxes available. If you have all A's and B's in every single class, you would make a check mark in this box right here under the meeting section. If you have any C's or below, you would put your check mark in this box. Even if it's only in one class, you need to put it in this box. In this case, this student has 1 C in social studies. Even though they have A's and B's in all of their other classes, they need to put the check mark in this box right here. And that's it for the first section. For the next sections, you are going to be answering questions. And again, we are staying in checkpoint number 1. So for this section called Academic Belief, there are 2 questions. It says, how much do you believe the following? And you're going to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. So number 1 says, I believe I can do well in my classes. Do you strongly believe, or do you not believe, or do you have somewhere in the middle? You would put your answer right here under checkpoint number 1. Number 2 says, I believe I can succeed in college. You're kind of looking at your future. If you believe you can succeed in college, you rate yourself again on the scale of 1 to 10. Now over here on the right, if you have any 5s or below for either of those questions, you put a check mark in this box. If you have 6s or above in both questions, you put your check mark in this box. Then you move on. For this section, self-management, there are 4 questions you need to answer, and again, you're going to put your answers in checkpoint number 1. How often do you do the following? And you're going to answer never, rarely, often, or always. Question 1, I take notes in class during lectures. You answer that question down here, number 1, using never, rarely, often, or always. Number 2, I take notes when reading books for school. Well, Number 3, I use a planner or calendar to organize my time. That includes the iPad. And finally, number 4, I check over my assignments to make sure I did my best. Once you've answered those 4 questions, again, you're going to put your check mark in one of these 2 boxes. If you have any rarely or nevers, in this case I have a never, so I'm going to have to put my check mark in this box. If you answered all 4 questions with either often or always, you would put your check mark in this box. All right, the last section, effort and persistence, has 3 questions. Again, you're going to answer with never, rarely, often, or always. Number 1, I put forth my best effort in my classes. Number 2, I seek help with my schoolwork when needed. If my schoolwork is difficult, I keep trying. Again, you're going to put your check mark either in this box if you answered any of those questions with a rarely or never, and you put your check mark in this box if all 3 questions were answered with an often or always. Go ahead and put your check mark in. Now, down at the bottom, if you don't know your MCA scores from last year, you do not need to fill this section out quite yet. I will get you the scores later. If you do know them, you can put your scores right here next to math and next to reading. Now, what does this all mean? I will be going over that answer to the question in class so that we have a good understanding of what all of this means, and we'll give you a good introduction to how to write some goals for the year. Thanks.